kind of a quarterly meeting schedule, or was it monthly?
I'm not sure, to be quite
Yeah.
honestly. I don't think it was monthly. I think it was just trying to catch up, and that probably quarterly. So this would be the meeting for this quarter.
Yeah, so
Right.
that
I'm
would
just
be-
double checking the stream, but it looks like we should be ideally working.
Let me know when we're live.
Yes, we are live. Please proceed,
And-
Councillor.
Thank you, and we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd now like to call the meeting of the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority and the City of Hamilton Liaison Committee meeting to order. Just a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during our committee meeting, please. And members of the committee are reminded of the 5-minute time limit, which will be adhered to during this meeting. Members can submit another request to speak if they require more time to ask questions or make comments. So I'll now do a roll call. Members of the committee, please use the talk hand sign if you need to speak between items and raise a hand to move or second an item. And I will try to keep my eye on all of the moving parts here. So Madam Clerk, would you like to announce the names of all the members present, please?
Yes, in attendance, we have Mayor Eisenberger, Chair Councillor Partridge, Councillor Powers, and Jim Howlett from the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority.
Thank you very much. And I'm not sure if I said we will be voting by a show of hands. So Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair, there are no changes.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Councillor Powers and seconded by Jim Howlett. Thank you, Jim. All in favor? Show of hands. There we go. Thank you. And let's see, let me go down here a little bit further. Now, are there any declarations of interest? And I'm not seeing everybody on my screen, so Kelsey, if you could just let me know if there's any hands up, any declarations of a disqualifying interest or a non-disqualifying interest. Madam Clerk? There are no hands up?
Sorry. Nope, there are no indications.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 14th, 2022 meeting, please? Moved by Mayor. I'm sorry, who was that?
It was Jim Howlett. But
oh, thank you, Jim. I'm so sorry. I'm not seeing anybody on the screen here. Moved by Jim Howlett, seconded by Mayor Eisenberger. And all in favor, please. And that is carried. Thank you. Move on to staff presentations. 8.1, accessibility of canal and piers, respecting pier access, economic development, Lighthouse, and lift bridge. This will be a verbal update, and I'm assuming all in that order. And Norm Schleien, Director of Economic Development for the City of Hamilton, please.
I think through the chair to that first piece on the access to the piers, I think I'm going to defer to my colleagues in Public Works. I can provide the economic development update after that.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so Public Works, please. Staff that are here.
Through the chair, Carl Alcan, acting city manager, Craig Murdoch. He's been handling the file in his area with Cynthia Graham. More than happy to answer questions or give that update. Craig?
Welcome, Carlisle. Thank you for attending. Go ahead, Craig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we met with the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority and the City of Burlington on July 26th on site to discuss a coordinated approach to maintaining or actually resuming the public access to those piers. So the desire for both cities is to have a coordinated look for amenities. So amenities could be benches, garbage receptacles, sun shelters, things like that. But we also, at first, have to go through the process of coming up with a contractual agreement with the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority on basically an occupancy where the cities will occupy the surface of the piers and will be responsible for things like maintenance and sweeping, snow removal, things like that. And the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority will be responsible for the structure of the piers, as well as some safety improvements like railings and barriers and the repair of some certain tripping hazards. So we're in the process now where our respective legal services are reviewing an example contract that has been presented to us by the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority using the City of Oshawa's agreement with the HOPA, and then we'll start basically our negotiations from there. Now, the authority for us to enter into negotiations with the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority, the report for the City of Burlington is going to their committee today and to their council next week. And our report is going to the General Issues Committee next Wednesday, the 21st. So once we have received the authority to enter into negotiations, then we will be resuming our discussions with the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that update. And Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask you to please call out if there's anyone who has any questions or wishes to make a comment. I can only see Mayor Eisenberger on my screen, and I do apologize. I can't see anybody else other than myself and the mayor. Could you help me out there, please, Kelsey?
Yes, absolutely. And we have a question from Councillor Powers.
Go ahead, Councillor Powers, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question to Craig is, he mentions snow clearing. So, probably haven't got to this particular point, but this year, because of the federal government limiting our access to it, we rightly made the decision in order to restrict access to the piers during the winter season. Is there any thoughts about maintaining that? I mean, I'm concerned probably from a safety standpoint. You mentioned snow clearing and ice builds up and whatever. Has there been any thought or to that to this point, or is that a consideration for another day?
So I'll go back to Craig. Craig, can you answer that? And I also see that CEO Ian Hamilton has a hand up, and I'd ask everybody to please use the hand up signal. It seems to me, looks like I can see that, even when I can't see the video.
Okay, through you, Madam Chair. So Councillor Powers, we haven't gotten to that level of detail yet on what the seasonality will look like, what kind of access we'll be maintaining. We have considered that there will be certain times of the year where it will be too hazardous for the public to be on the piers. And that could be even in the summertime, if we have a strong storm and there's high water levels, there may be times that we have to lock the gates. We also have to consider, are we going to be locking the gates at night? It depends on what level of lighting that we have on the piers. And of course, in the wintertime, there will be slip hazards. So if there's a big buildup of ice, we likely would have to close those piers. But if there is a time, as we know in our freeze-thaw cycles, there could be times where we've got a dry, sunny spell in the middle of winter and there's no ice buildup. There may be a time where we could open them up. However, whatever we do, we would want to do in conjunction with the City of Burlington so that we always have a coordinated approach.
Thank you, Craig. Councillor Powers?
Nothing further. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll go to and actually, if you want to speak, if you could put it into the chat, I can see the chat. And thank you, Elsie Kelsey, for doing that. And I'll now go to Ian Hamilton, please.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe, and I think Craig, you did a great job answering the question. It's our belief that there will be no requirement for snow removal, exactly as you suggested. It'll be a condition inside of the lease around the opening for safety reasons. And fundamentally, if there's snow on the pier, then we wouldn't want it opened.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Powers, any supplementals?
Sorry, just, no, nothing at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Eisenberger, please.
Yeah, so just to follow on that, I mean, my understanding of the, the proposed agreement is that the city of Hamilton will be in charge, along with Burlington, in charge of making, functional decisions as to when they should be open and when they should be closed, right? So we're sorting out a management arrangement of the pier, even though it's now under the auspices of the Port Authority. Federal government has stepped away from this. We will be, as a city, kind of defining, what kind of operational timing needs to be attached to closings and openings of the piers in consultation, coordination with Burlington. Am I understanding that correctly?
Who would like to answer
By virtue
that?
of the agreement that we're hoping to sort out.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ian Hamilton, please.
Yeah, essentially, you are correct. With our accountability for putting in the safety measures, we are going to, I guess, invest in safety measures that would make it a safe environment during when there is no snow on the facility. So that's why I say that it'll be here's the investment we're going to make to make sure it's a safe facility during these conditions. So yes, you do have the operational thing, but we just have the there's an underlying of you can't really decide we're going to open up in the winter anyways.
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry, say that again. So if we decide as a community that we want to clear the snow off of the pier, and I think Craig talked about that, then that would be under our purview and our decision to make in terms of keeping it open for access during the winter months, right?
Ian?
I guess ultimately, if you chose to, yes. As I said, the investments that we're going to make are on the assumption that it is not going to be open in the wintertime.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, I guess we've got some discussing to do because, certainly my recollection over the generations that this pier has been accessible, it's been accessible all year. So if we're back to now, shutting it down at certain times for certain reasons, and if those reasons can't be overcome, I could accept that. But I would think that we would look to making them as accessible as possible. Bearing in mind the safety, issues that have to be taken into account to do that. So I mean, maybe I'll turn to Craig to ask, is the city going to be asking for or putting on the table the ability to take steps and measures to keep accessibility open as much as possible?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Craig, would you like to respond, please?
Through you, Madam Chair. We haven't gotten to that level of detail yet, Mr. Mayor. The actual operation of these piers is unknown to us because we don't know what amenities will be in place. We don't know what level of service that would be provided. However, we will be reporting back to General Issue Committee and Council at a future date once we have the contract negotiated with the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority. And we can also entertain feedback from members of council on or members of the public on what everyone would like to see as part of the operation of those piers. I think we can overcome a lot of different adverse conditions with the right equipment.
Correct. So
Mayor?
I mean, I won't be here 2 months from now. Let me give you my feedback now, which is let's work towards accessibility to the highest degree possible, bearing in mind the safety issues that we all have to bear in mind, and that's high water levels, and if there's ice and snow on the surface, that certainly is cause for closing it down. But I would hope and think that if we can overcome some of those challenges, that we would not be hamstrung by, all due respect, the Port Authority that is already saying they're working on the assumption that it's going to be closed at a certain point for the entirety of the winter. So I hope we're not in that space. I'd like to think that we're, being flexible in this, but all of us bearing in mind the safety issues that, of course, we all have to be mindful of. So I'll just give you my input now, as accessible as possible, but keeping the safety issues, top of mind.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before I go to Jim, Carlisle, did you want to provide a comment?
Yes, please. Thank you. And through the chair to the mayor, in the report that's in front of committee on the 21st, we do have in the draft report that municipalities will be assuming the responsibility for garbage, lighting, snow clearing, and the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority would maintain responsibility for the pier structures, shipping and navigation operations. So with that in mind, I think that the possibility of keeping it open and accessible to the public exists. And as Craig indicated, we will, with your authority of council, we would negotiate that approach with them.
Thank you, Carlisle. Mr. Mayor, anything further before I go to Jim?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. And I mean, I like the sound of that. And if there's going to be flexibility all around to get to that point that would keep it open, all season to the best degree possible, bearing in mind safety issues, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your comments. Jim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaking as a citizen and not as a Port Authority person, I'm somebody who has used the pier all my life, and I've been down there at just about every hour of the day in every season. And I was in the past few years, but not in lockdown, asking people at night and in the day what they wanted for access there. And it was always that it would be year-round, 24/7. I talked to a lot of people who would end a night shift or a day shift, an afternoon, something like that, and they would go down to the pier with a fishing rod or a camera or a coffee, and they just want to walk out there and be there enjoying it. So I want to try and speak for those people. The vast majority of people down the pier are no harm at all. And I know that there's almost something incongruent in being overly concerned about safety, given that right adjacent to this is all of Lake Ontario, which is year-round, wide open. There can be ice on the beach and huge flows and mountains of ice out there, and it is very rare to have a fatality. There are a bit of incidents where people do walk out on the ice, and occasionally some tragedy happens, but in terms of per capita impact by that, it's almost negligible. No disrespect intended to those who have had tragedies, but I think the greater tragedy would be to wither the access to the community and to broader Ontario and Canada and visitors to here in terms of access. I think we should do everything we can. I really like the mayor's idea that perhaps the city could take on the snow plowing, and I would hope that within the Port Authority we could work on those things there. I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Any further comments? Mr. Mayor?
And just to remind, I'm more than confident that the city does look after the waterfront trail in behind Beach Boulevard and does plow. Jim, you can confirm this probably better than most of us, to provide access when weather allows. So obviously when the storm is on, that isn't possible, but they do have access to equipment that actually keeps that pathway clear the entire year. And so Jim makes a good point that, accessibility is something that shouldn't be limited, I don't think, but safety should always be the overriding factor. But remind me, and maybe Craig or Public Works can confirm that we do maintain those trails to the best degree possible during the winter months.
Craig?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that we do maintain the waterfront trail in the wintertime. Parks staff do clear it, so the same staff would be the ones that would hopefully be maintaining the winter accessibility of the pier.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Larissa, I do see your note in the chat, and when we get to Randall Reef, I will read that out. Thank you very much for including that. Any further discussion on the canal and pier, respecting the pier access? All right, seeing none, the next item is the economic development update, and we'll go to Norm Schleien, please.
Thank you. And through the chair, my update will be very brief today. Ian Hamilton, myself, our meeting of we usually meet every 6 to 8 weeks to update each other. And I had to defer our last meeting because of my vacation schedule. So that meeting is taking place on this upcoming Monday. So Ian and I will be getting together to talk about our joint activities. And so we'll have a more formal update at our next meeting, unfortunately not for today. But I do want to tell you that we followed up with Niagara Region further to the last meeting and pursuing partnerships with HOPA as well as with Niagara Region. And we have a meeting scheduled on October the 6th with their CEO, Ron Tripp, Jeanette, our CEO, City Manager Jeanette Smith, myself, and my ECDEV counterpart, George Spessa. So, and Ian will be there as well. So we'll be having that meeting on October the 6th. So we will be pursuing potential joint activities, partnerships at that meeting. That was some follow-up from the last meeting. And just lastly, on September 21st, we'll be presenting the Bayfront Industrial Area Strategy to GIC, which obviously has a lot of input from the port. And Ian was on the steering committee of that document. And so that will be coming forward at GIC next Wednesday. So I believe that's been posted for some time because it's a rather large document, and I hope that you've all had a chance to read at least the executive summary on that one, because it is about 700 pages or so. But anyway, and just lastly, I just like to say thank you to Ian and Larissa for hosting a delegation we had up from the U.S. last week and taking them for a harbor tour. We were being evaluated. The City of Hamilton's going through an accreditation. We're one of 75 accredited economic development organizations in North America, and this was the group that was actually evaluating our performance as well as our relationships with our partners, and they were very appreciative, Ian and Larissa, of the time that you took to spend with them last week.
Thank you very much, Norm. And yeah, we're very proud as a city of that accreditation. And thank you to Norm and his team for their leadership on that. It's a real crowning moment, I would say. And any questions on that? And thank you for raising the meeting about Niagara. That will, of course, come to the next meeting, whenever that shall be, because we are meeting quarterly, and this is our meeting for this quarter. So it will be in the new term of council, whatever the decision is on the formation of this committee. Any questions? Any hands up?
Was it a 3-hour tour by chance?
Not quite. But we made it back, so that's all that matters. So it's and I do apologize, Madam Chair. I do have to run to another meeting with Mike Zagaric. We're talking to the bond raiders today, so so I will need to drop off the meeting. So
bond raiders are important, so go get them, Norm. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone.
your update.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
AAA+ is what we're looking for, Norm.
Absolutely.
All right.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. And so next we have the Lighthouse and the lift bridge for a verbal update. And who would like to provide some sort of an update on that? So it's two separate items. It's the Lighthouse and also the lift bridge, which I believe is going to be under some maintenance and have some closures. Ian, would you be able to update on that, or perhaps someone?
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say neither one of them are city projects, so.
Yeah, the Lighthouse currently is going through some of the preliminary stages for its relocation, and we're doing the repointing of the concrete work. So it will allow it to be structurally sound enough to be moved to its new home. We believed we had a new home for it, or exactly where the location was going to be, but there's a bit of back and forth with the MTO, making sure that we put it in a spot that they're comfortable with. So it's all positive and moving forward. The lift bridge That is, yeah, that's a PSPC, Public Works bridge, not our bridge, but we do understand that, yeah, there is some work going on with it.
All right, thank you very much. And, you know, what would it be without a bit of a back and forth without the ministry? It would make for a boring life. So thank you very much for the update on that. Any comments or questions, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, let me just thank the Port Authority for their you know, great collaboration on both the canal piers and the lighthouse. They've taken on some community-wide interest aspects of you know, the waterfront areas and the lakefront, and I really commend them for that. And I wasn't really trying to give Ian a hard time. I understand their objective, and you know, I think that I appreciate that. I'm still surprised that the MTO is giving you grief. Are they still worried about the flying vehicle coming off of the Skyway Bridge to land on somebody, which has never, ever happened? But I know that they keep kind of pushing back on some of the adjustments. But I hope you can work it out, because the effort to make the lighthouse more visible and accessible, I think, is equally terrific. And we thank you for all that effort, because it really has taken some monumental participation from the Port Authority to get this thing moving forward, as well as a great committee and groups of folks that have had passion on this for quite a long time. The Lighthouse and the Gatekeeper's House, actually. So I want to thank him for that, and encourage anything that we might help with in terms of MTO. You know, let us know. But I think you know, I hope you can sort it out and get it to a place where it can be visible and visitable down the road. So something that is going to be accessible for people as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well said. Well said. Next, Jim, you have some comments, please.
Well, you know, I'm on the Port Authority, and I don't know if it's improper of me to say the Port Authority needs a pat on the back for this one. I have been on many sort of lighthouse rescue committees since about the 80s, and that building has, let's be kind and say, it's languished. It's almost it's not quite demolition by neglect, but that lighthouse was going nowhere in terms of the public or its own usefulness and historicity right there. But to actually move it off of the site that it is now and put it somewhere where it's both visible and visitable, and have a budget somehow to renovate it and keep it going and have people in there, that is outside of the Port Authority's normal purview. They have stretched. They've really done a lot of work to get out there and do that. And I think I have to say that, you know, us, they need a pat on the back on that one. That's not an easy ball to move.
Well, consider the pat from the group. Well done. I just think I really appreciate your words, Mr. Mayor, because and Jim, because the you know, the lighthouse is just so important to the community, both Burlington and Hamilton, and the residents of the beach strip. So you know, I just so look forward to the completion of this project. I have no further speakers. Any other comments at all before we I'll look for a motion from Mr. Mayor and Jim Howlett then to receive the presentation, or sorry, to receive the verbal update. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 8.2, the completion of Randall Reef. Now, the note from Larissa, thank you, Larissa, says that we do not have a speaker on Randall Reef matter today. Could we please defer this to a future meeting when we will invite a speaker from Environment Canada, unless there's city staff who would be able to provide a brief update on the Randall Reef project. Is there any staff here that could do that? Carlisle or Craig?
Through the chair, Mark Bainbridge is available, and he's here to give us an update from the city's perspective of the project.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, and good afternoon through you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is a great project, Randall Reef, and we certainly enjoy a fantastic partnership with our other levels of government, as well as local agencies, including the Port Authority. We as a brief update, the environmental benefits have largely been achieved by this project. They were celebrated earlier in 2022 after the completion of dredging. So we basically have achieved the management of sediments in the quantities of about 615,000 cubic meters, largely placed within the CDF structures that have been built. So as a quick review, stage 1 is complete. That is the structure itself that's been built out in the harbor. Stage 2 is also complete with the completion of dredging. At the end of 2021, the project received another award, the Brownfield Award, through the Canadian Brownfield Network. And then moving into 2022, one of the activities through May and June was the pilot capping project, which was preparing for the tendering, the stage 3 tendering, which is the last phase of work, and collecting data about how the material can be consolidated and properly capped. So following through into fall here of 2022, there is ongoing dewatering of the cells in preparation for stage 3. And we do expect right now the preliminary target is to have tendering beginning in the fall here of 2022. Stage 3 tender, and in the winter of 2023 is the target for award of construction. So these are fairly preliminary. We don't have a contractor's schedule yet, so they're fairly rough timelines at the minute. But preliminary construction would extend into likely the end of 2024. There is a meeting in October of the committees for the project, and we'll probably get a more up-to-date update as a result of that meeting coming up shortly here in the first week of October. So that is a pretty quick overview.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. I do have a couple of questions myself, but first I'll go to Mr. Mayor and then to Councillor Powers.
Thank you, Mark, for the update. And I think this council and previous councils that and federal and provincial parties and Port Authority can all take some pride in. I think this pretty significant accomplishment. It's as difficult as it's been and as costly as it's been. I think it's going to be extremely worthwhile for future water quality in the harbor. So kudos to everyone that's been participating. Just to kind of follow through on what Mark was talking about, I guess I anticipate functional use of those lands to happen sometime or be available for functional use sometime after 2025. Is that a reasonable estimate given the work that's yet to be done in terms of capping?
Mark?
Yep, through you, Chair. I think that that's a reasonable estimate at this point in time. Again, the tender process for phase 3, which is the actual award to a contractor for the capping, the consolidation and the capping of the facility, which is largely the work that's necessary to make it an accessible and usable space, will give us a more concrete timeline once that bid package comes in. But I think right now, from what I've heard, those timelines kind of make sense to me that you've put forward, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure if Port Authority, Ian, has anything to add to that.
Yeah, and I was going to ask Ian. So, given that, is the Port Authority starting to formulate plans on how those lands are going to be utilized? I mean, obviously, ultimately, it's going to be in the hands of the Port Authority to make use of, and I'm sure you're thinking about active beneficial use. What have you started that process, and what can you tell us about where that might be at?
Ian, the process going forward, please.
Yeah, so we've certainly got a number of different ideas, and I think right now the focus around supply chain resilience and how do we address congestion and how do we deal with reduction of greenhouse gases, and some of the challenges that we're faced with in terms of truck driver shortages, and sort of the price of fuel is means that we're putting a lot of energy into right now into container movements. And you might have seen on Sherman and Burlington Street, the container yard that's being built, and we're hoping to do a few trials this year. So I don't know if the sun and the stars and the moon all line up, then we would love to see that as a container facility. But it's probably too early to commit to that. But that certainly would be a wonderful use of that piece of property.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor, any other comments?
I was commenting to myself apparently because I had myself on mute, but whatever I said was brilliant. No, thank you, Ian. You know what, I'm no doubt you're turning your mind to that, and you know, one of the challenges that the Port Authority always has had, and you know, fortunately now with some expansion and some look at well and other locations, the capability of generating more business value and opportunity is certainly there, and this piece of land kind of fits into that as well. So glad you're turning your mind to that, and certainly what indicated in terms of terminal certainly makes some sense given its direct water access on, I guess, 3 sides or 4 sides almost. So that certainly gives a certain opportunity to that location. So look forward to that development. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm very encouraged by that as well. Councillor Powers, please.
And thank you, Madam Chair. A few years ago, I hosted my colleagues from Canada and the United States from the International Joint Commission in the Great Lakes, and we actually toured the site, and they were quite impressed with the work that was already in process in order to get things coming along. And their feeling is if we achieve what we were setting out to do, it would take us a long way in order to get Hamilton Harbor off the endangered list, the list of the of troubled waters in the Great Lakes. So that was a great thing. My question for Mark is just an explanation for me is, could you explain what you do mean by dewatering? In other words, what's the stuff like that comes out from the dredge material, and then how do you dewater and make it safe for the capping? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep, thank you, Councillor. Mark?
Through you, Madam Chair, fantastic question. Councillor Powers, the process by which the sediment is dredged was through hydraulic dredging. It basically cuts the bottom of the harbor with a rotating kind of a carbide cutter. It mixes it with water into a slurry so that it can go through a pipeline system that comes up into the dredge and then is pumped over to the containment facility. So as a result of that, we get benefits from that because it is the most environmentally beneficial way to dredge, because it's a suction system that draws in all of the pollutants. It's not like a mechanical system which puts clouds and stirs up sediment as much. But it does come with a lot of water. So when the cells are filled up, it's a mix of water and sediment. In addition, because the containment facility is open to the atmosphere, it does take on precipitation as well. So the project had an on-site water treatment facility, or wastewater treatment facility for a better term. They would pump that material out off the top. It would be sort of decanted, and the water would be drawn off the top, and it would be dewatered through that treatment facility. And that was the process by which we were managing the materials during the hydraulic dredging. Now that that's over, largely precipitation water is being managed through a pumping system that is contributing to our municipal wastewater system. So it's actually smaller quantities now, and through the end of 2022 are putting into the municipal sewer system. It meets our bylaws at this stage of the project, and it's treated at the Woodward site. So those are the two methods of dewatering in order to get as much water out of the cell as possible. Moving into stage 3, the next stage will include a what they call a preload stage, and they'll be pressing the sediments, and the water will be forcibly kind of compressed out of it in order to consolidate it for the capping project.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sounds like a similar process to the Shadok dredging that's going to be happening. So I have a question. I'll turn the chair over to you, Mr. Mayor, if I can. The question is to Mark, and how do we get Randall Reef now that the project is almost complete? How do we get it off the list, if you will, of the highest polluted area of the Great Lakes? What is the process for that, and what would the timing be, please, through you, Chair?
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. That is a complicated question. Randall Reef is but one component of the factors that lead to Hamilton Harbor as an area of concern. I think this region has a lot to be thankful for and to celebrate in the fact that Randall Reef has met its environmental objectives, and that by the end of 2022, our Woodward wastewater treatment plant large capital upgrade will also be meeting its environmental targets for new effluent quality standards. Those are two huge projects that lead to an improvement in water quality in Hamilton Harbor. However, we do have our smaller Dundas wastewater treatment plant, which we have done some preliminary work, but largely don't have the funding to improve its status. And we have watershed issues to manage and improve as well. So I think what this process looks like is that the beneficial use impairments of Hamilton Harbor will continue to be monitored. They will potentially, out of the 14 uses that are on the list, they will come off one by one. We may be able to get into an area of recovery before a delisting process is met. And then we have to wait for the environmental repairs to show up in the data that we collect. And that is a time frame that I don't think anybody can accurately predict. But the data has to show that we have a clean harbor before we can delist. And once we have that data in our hands, we could potentially move out of an area of recovery and apply for a status as delisted.
Yep.
Thank you, Mark. I'm hearing long timing, difficult process, very complex, but I appreciate the answer. I didn't realize that there were a number of projects on the list to apply for the delisting, if you will. So one by one, we'll look after getting those off. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll take the chair back. Any other comments or questions, please? Okay, I'm seeing
Sorry.
none.
Jim
See,
Howlett would like
Jim
to speak,
Howlett's,
Chair.
doing a wave.
Oh, Jim, yeah, go ahead, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, just an encouraging comment about Randall Reef. You know, as it is completed, we're going to lose a beneficial use impairment. That's the jargon of the Hamilton Harbor Remedial Action Plan, which I think I've been on for 30 years now. So that's great. Then we're going to get some revenue generation for the Port Authority and its tenants off of that. And then I noticed from a trip down to that area the other night to visit a Port Authority operation or a tenant operation that the area of Sherman Avenue heading right up to the fenced off area on the north from Burlington Street has really had some industrial renewal. The road is new, the sign is new or going to be, you know, the old International Harvester sign. The fences are new. The Port Authority has a modern, clean security building down there. And interestingly enough, there are some wonderful floral gardens to that approach. And it just says this port, this area of the city, it's got new standards. It's running on all cylinders. And I'm eager to tell you all that.
Thank you, Jim. That is some good news, definitely. Any other comments, please? That was good discussion, conversation. Thank you. So a motion to receive the verbal update, Councillor Powers and Jim Howlett, please. All in favor? And that is carried. Oh, we're just zipping right along here. Any other business at all? We're at that point where general information and other business. Seeing no other business? Sorry, go ahead.
It's Elsie Kelsey, just advising that I'm not seeing any indications.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So we're at that point. May I have a motion to adjourn unless there's any other comments?
I'll move.
Okay, moved by Jim and seconded by the mayor and Councillor Powers and myself. And thank you very much, everyone. I very much appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, Elsie Kelsey. Thanks, Larissa. Thanks, Ian.